Samsung Electronics says it expects its second quarter profits to drop an eye-popping 56.3% from a year earlier. It is blaming lower demand on memory chips. Yahoo Finance's Sibile Marcellus joins us now to explain what's at play. And Sibile, I got to imagine the trade war and Huawei are factoring into this.
Absolutely, Adam, definitely factoring into this. So we have Samsung that said that for the quarter, their operating profit is $5.5 billion, which is better than expected, but still a 56% drop from a year ago. Now, the reason for this, Samsung is saying, is weakness in price and demand of memory chips. And when it comes to their profit, memory chips are extremely central and important for that. Now, Samsung has said that it did have one-off gains. That stems from an agreement Samsung had with Apple. Apple missed its sales target, so had to reimburse Samsung for 800 billion won. But that one-off aside, when it comes to the semiconductor business, that was better than expected. And when it comes to the smartphone sales business, that was lower than expected, much worse than expected. Now, Samsung moving forward has said that it also has to deal with trade tensions with South Korea. That's over a dispute over wartime forced labor. Japan has said this week that it's going to restrict the export of tech that South Korean chip makers really need. And South Korea has said this week that it may retaliate.
Sibile, thank you very much. We're going to keep talking about what this means, not only for Samsung, but perhaps for other electronics firms. And Akiko, this is your specialty. How do you read? I put you on the spot there. I apologize. But how do you read this? I mean, the price of chips is getting driven down, and it's partially because of the trade war.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few narratives that you can draw from this, and we should point out this is just guidance, so the numbers are coming later. Number one, the weak smartphone demand, which is something we've been talking about for some time, and Samsung gets, 75% of their revenue from memory chips, and they've been talking about diversifying beyond that, because what we've heard in the semiconductor space is it's no longer tied directly to smartphone demand moving forward. It's going to be about not just 5G, but also AI. And Samsung has had to make that pivot to try and diversify on that front. On the trade issue, I mean, I think we've talked about this before. I think it does point to just how global, everything is in terms of the supply chain. Samsung clearly getting hit because Huawei was is a customer. Mm-hmm. But that last bit that Sibile mentioned to me is going to be a really interesting one, because Japan has now taken a page out of President Trump's playbook, saying, look, you want to come back and have Japanese companies pay for forced labor during World War II, which is obviously a dispute that's been going on between these two countries for some time. We're going to retaliate. And Samsung needs that material to build out their chips. Where else is the retaliation going to come from? Samsung has to prep for this, just like so many other semiconductor companies.
You are nodding your head.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this develops. So where is Samsung going to get these memory chips, or where are these companies going to get the memory chips if not from Samsung? I've been watching the semiconductor space intently, especially as we headed into the G20 meeting, and we saw semiconductors rallying broadly. And now, since a gap up Monday in the stocks, we've been declining ever since. So it's been kind of buy the rumor, sell the news. Now, semiconductors overall, very volatile industry, especially in the stock price. And there have been supply concerns since last year. Now, the comps are going to start getting easier as we head into the third quarter. And for Samsung's part, they're still expected to bounce back in the second half of 2019. And since this is a very forward-looking market, I don't see the chip space getting hit too hard by this particular news. It's really going to be, does the trade war expand on multiple fronts? The Japan thing, really interesting.
All right, we are going to be talking about that endlessly for the next couple of weeks.